I always thought of NASA as the world's coolest space research organization. After all, it has shocked space enthusiasts with its mesmerizing pictures of outer space and rip-roaring videos of rockets penetrating the thermosphere and exosphere. But like any other organization, NASA has got some secrets as well. Many are skeptical about its inner workings and dark secrets kept out of the public domain. While some of these secrets make NASA seem much cooler, some reveal sordid tales of conspiring with Nazi war criminals, colonizing other planets, mistreating astronauts, and sometimes even killing them. So, join me as we dive deep into the well of NASA's dark secrets that accidentally got leaked to the public. NASA killed its own astronauts. NASA deliberately led its astronauts toward death, despite complete knowledge of the technical failures and impending tragedy. Yep, you heard that right. It's been confirmed that the NASA administration could have easily averted the tragedy and saved precious lives. But no. The organization was hell-bent on continuing the mission using a faulty shuttle that blew up on live TV, shocking millions nationwide. I am, of course, referring to the 1986 Challenger explosion, a tragedy that shook the world to its core. The whole affair was horrifying, but what's even more alarming is the fact that the NASA administration knew it would happen and could have easily averted it. You see, rockets are designed as giant tubes filled with explosive fuel, featuring sturdy O-ring rubber seals that hold the major joints of the shuttle firmly in place. As you can guess, the components of a rocket demand perfection. Everything from the nails to the screws has to be impeccably perfect. In short, there is absolutely no room for errors. Just before the launch, engineer Roger Boisjoli, the designer of the Challenger, noticed that the O-rings of the shuttle were deteriorating due to the ongoing frost wave. He realized that the rings were unfit to support the rocket and would soon fall apart, putting the lives of the astronauts at risk. Boisjoli immediately informed the NASA administration, imploring them to delay the launch so the shuttle could be fixed. He clearly informed the administration that the shuttle could blow up, but blinded by their greed, the executives at NASA refused. The very next day, Boisjoli's worst fear came true. The shuttle blew up, killing 7 astronauts. As the nation mourned the lives of its brave young children, Boisjoli was consumed with guilt. He blamed himself for not doing enough to save those precious lives. But the truth is, it wasn't Boisjoli who killed those astronauts. There is no way you can blame the man. He tried everything he could. It was NASA who preferred sending its astronauts to death rather than delaying a mission to prioritize their safety. This just goes to show how much NASA cares for those who sacrifice their entire lives to carry out its space mission. Silencing Major Gordon Cooper after claims of UFO sightings. Not only is NASA directly responsible for the tragic deaths of 7 astronauts, but they also have some very foul secrets. Secrets big enough that NASA had to threaten its astronauts to secrecy. Those who venture out into space are able to witness rare phenomena and wonders of the galaxy. And the things they see, they want to share with the world. However, NASA doesn't want the world to know everything, especially the mysteries of UFOs and alien life. What could this secret be? It all starts with Major Gordon Cooper, the legendary Mercury astronaut and one of the last American astronauts to embark on a solo mission. While traveling in a Mercury capsule, Cooper headed on a 22 orbits-long voyage around the globe. And during this journey, he witnessed something unexpected: a UFO. While completing his final orbit near Perth, Australia, Cooper informed the Muchea tracking station that he had seen a UFO. He described seeing a bright, glowing object that was green in color, inching closer and closer to the Mercury capsule. Before you say it, This UFO sighting wasn't just a fragment of Cooper's imagination. Even the Muchia tracking radar had picked up visuals and recordings of this mysterious object. On top of that, the National Broadcast Company ran a broadcast to report this sighting. Cooper was beyond excited to become the first American astronaut to share such a remarkable discovery with the world. But his hopes were slashed as soon as he landed. The truth did not matter because NASA had decided to cover the whole story up. Cooper was strictly warned against discussing the matter with the press. Reporters who were present at the scene were asked to leave and denied permission to question Cooper regarding the UFO discovery. Much to NASA's disapproval, Major Cooper was not to be silenced. He was a passionate believer in alien life and UFOs, and this wasn't even the first instance where he had spotted UFOs. Cooper's first UFO sighting occurred in 1951 while flying an F-86 Saberjet across West Germany. While testifying at the United Nations conference, he recalled spotting metallic extraterrestrial vehicles. He described them as looking like saucers and sleek discs. I wonder what those could be. Cooper maintained that most astronauts have sighted UFOs, but are hesitant to share their discoveries with the public. All because NASA disapproves of going public with such information. During an interview with notable journalist J.L. Ferrando, Cooper disclosed that he had spent decades in imposed secrecy. He was forced to hide the truth, but he could not fight his eagerness to share it with the world. He also made the shocking claim that the NASA radars capture extraterrestrial objects and signs of alien lives much more frequently than the public is led to believe. He further added that there are hundreds and thousands of witness testimonies and substantial evidence to prove UFO sightings and the presence of alien objects. So why isn't it all public? Well, Cooper says that the authorities are too afraid this knowledge will lead to anarchy and panic. Are these wild claims by this renowned astronaut false? Or is NASA lying to us all, hiding the existence of aliens and UFOs? You decide. Project A119, the mission to nuke the moon. I know America's go-to solution for most problems is to bomb it to oblivion. But what did the moon do to deserve such a treatment? To find out, we will have to go all the way back to the Cold War. You see, during the Cold War, America and the Soviet Union were in an outrageous pissing contest on a global stage. Both superpowers were hell-bent on outdoing each other. One way they were ramming horns was through the space race. Both countries wanted their space program to be more accomplished than the others, and for this, both sides would come up with new ideas. The only problem was some of these ideas were completely insane. I am talking idiotic plans that could only lead to catastrophes. One such eccentric mission was Project A119. I am not even joking. The genius idea was to nuke the moon. It was a joint mission spearheaded by NASA and the United States Air Force, with the sole purpose of giving the middle finger to the moon. The more sensible viewers watching would now be asking, why? Well, it was all just to prove America's mettle in atomic development and show the Russians how powerful America's arsenal is. There is so much wrong with this idea. First of all, it served no purpose aside from letting America get the upper hand over the USSR in a very insignificant way. Secondly, we all know the USSR would have retaliated by dropping a bigger bomb on the moon. Once that cycle got started, we would have had a radiation ball filled with holes orbiting our planet instead of the moon. The madmen who planned this mission gave many theories to support this mission. They claimed that blowing a nuclear bomb on the moon was important to study how such a catastrophe would impact the Earth. Truly, an argument worthy of NASA. Did everyone there share a single brain cell back in the day? Clearly, NASA's sense of entitlement has no bounds whatsoever. Fortunately, good sense took over and this mission was shelved permanently. Thank God for that one. NASA, the brainchild of a demented Nazi rocket scientist. When you look up NASA, you will see a website brimming with interactive material about its illustrious history. But what if I told you that this organization is actually hiding its true history? What if NASA's inception is more sinister than you can imagine? Turns out, NASA is linked with Nazis. Yes, this beloved space agency is the brainchild of a Nazi rocket scientist, Wernher von Braun. Braun was one of the sharpest, most brilliant rocket scientists in Nazi-era Germany. During World War II, Braun was responsible for designing Nazi rockets and aircrafts, directly overseeing the V-2 missiles that were dropped across England. That's not all. Braun was also responsible for constructing terror weapons. And to make those, he deployed forced labor from Jewish concentration camps. This evil man committed innumerable crimes against humanity. But his brilliance allowed him to go scot-free while others paid for their crimes. The thing is, after winning the war, the Americans were anxious to capture Nazi tech. So they recruited the scientists responsible for designing the machines that fueled the wars. Because Wernher von Braun was a technological genius, the authorities just could not bear having him die as punishment for his crimes. So instead, he was shipped off to the US, where he began working on NACA. Sounds familiar? Yeah, the name has changed, but it is the very same NASA you know today. Later, Braun was integral to America's efforts in the space race. He was put in charge of the Saturn rocket that led American astronauts to the moon. Today, the war criminal Braun is a part of NASA's history, and they would rather have you forget it. Braun was a pioneer of rocket science, and his contributions to NASA laid the foundations of spaceflight. Modern-day advancements and discoveries have much to owe to him, but he was also a Nazi and a war criminal, so the question arises, was he a hero who revolutionized space travel and paved the road for some of humanity's most groundbreaking discoveries in outer space? Or was he a villain overseeing forced labor in concentration camps and designing rockets to destroy Europe and England? Personally, I refuse to see this war criminal as a hero. He should have been punished for his abhorrent crimes against humanity, no matter his intellect. NASA's barbaric protocols. I always thought being an astronaut was supposed to be awesome. Then why does it involve being wrapped and restrained with duct tape? The reality of space travel with NASA is far from the exciting depictions we see online. Truth be told, NASA doesn't really care about the well-being and life quality of the astronauts it sends to space. NASA only cares about launching a mission and then, years after, reporting the success of this mission. Nothing more. The executives could not care less about the life quality of the astronauts carrying out the mission, cooped up in huge methanol tubes for months, even years. Just imagine being cooped up in a metal can and being tossed into the darkness of space. The fear and anxiety alone would make you go mad. But don't make the mistake of showing any of that insanity building up. Because if you do, NASA has some pretty radical protocols to take care of you. No, I am not talking about a multi-million-dollar, artificial intelligence-powered innovation that will help astronauts overcome mental health challenges. All NASA needs to keep you in check is plain old duct tape. You see, astronauts are strictly forbidden from using any projectile weapons in space. So, stun guns are out of the question. Any item that can punch a hole in the capsules or destroy high-tech equipment can put astronauts at risk. So if an astronaut has an episode of mania during their weeks-long mission, the protocol is brutally straightforward. The astronaut is fully restrained using duct tape. According to NASA's standard operating procedure, Astronauts must restrain the individual with duct tape, use bungee cords to tie their hands and feet, and then put them to sleep with tranquilizers. Yeah, very dignified for an astronaut. But to be fair, there is not much else left to do, except maybe provide the astronauts with help so they don't reach that level of stress. NASA security breach.
System breach.
Oh.
Firewall 1.
We got a problem.
An organization as formidable and pioneering as NASA is expected to lead the global community with its advancements in science and technology. But sadly, the reality is quite different, and I'd say disappointing for NASA, as it can't even protect itself from home-based amateur hackers. Yep, you heard that right. NASA, despite being one of the most sensitive and integral organizations in the US, is extremely vulnerable to hacking and data theft. As it happens, this treasure trove of extraterrestrial secrets isn't that well protected, and anyone who has the skills and equipment can dive deep into this well to uncover secrets the feds would rather keep out of the public space. No wonder we all know so much about the dark details NASA would prefer to keep hidden. Someone probably got into their computers. And just so you know, NASA has suffered innumerable attempts of data theft, hacking, and even instances where space missions were blatantly hijacked throughout the years. One such particularly humiliating hacking attempt happened back in 2001, when the infamous British UFO hacker named Gary McKinnon hacked into NASA's high-tech apparatus. In this attack, not only did he steal secret files containing data about UFO sightings, but also went through almost all the data about peculiar events hidden from the public. But that isn't even the end. The funny part is that McKinnon, unimpressed by their lack of security features, left the NASA executives a note explaining how horrible their security system was and how desperately they needed to upgrade. As per the reports, McKinnon, being an avid UFO believer and researcher, stole a multitude of files. These stolen files included the Disclosure Project, a book featuring 400 testimonials of personnel involved in launching nuclear missiles. From what he saw in those files, he came to believe that NASA was reverse engineering technology captured from aliens to create nuclear weapons for the US Army. In fact, he confirmed that he had credible proof to back up this statement. Now that's a discovery. NASA's ridiculous miscalculations. Contributions to space research and discovery missions are one thing, but that isn't all that NASA does. In fact, one of its integral responsibilities remains to safeguard Earth from all possible extraterrestrial threats and dangers. As it happens, NASA isn't executing that responsibility to the best of its capabilities either. Honestly, is NASA doing anything right? But then again, that shouldn't come as a surprise, considering all that we've learned about this dubious organization. Over the years, NASA has been accused of making gross miscalculations about its discoveries in outer space. It won't be wrong to say that they have messed up calculations about almost everything, including UFO sightings, alien colonies, and most notably, examining the size of asteroids and their ability to collide with the Earth. In a similar instance, notable inventor and former Microsoft executive Nathan Myhrvold accused NASA of deliberately miscalculating the size of 164,000 asteroids and criticized the methodologies and instruments used by the organization. Myhrvold maintains that NASA has failed to analyze the accuracy of its calculations and undermines the threat of asteroids that are significantly larger than the Earth and are positioned in dangerous proximity to our planet. In fact, he's been fighting a battle against NASA's potentially life-threatening miscalculations by publicly sharing his 33-page research paper. I mean, if he's right, then a gigantic asteroid colliding with Earth wouldn't really sound fun. One hit, and the damage would be irreversible damage. In his paper, Myhrvold highlighted various errors and irregularities in NASA's calculations and statistics regarding the asteroids. He also noted that even though NASA has so many highly qualified individuals surveilling the Earth and its orbit, one can't trust them with the information they provide. In fact, they have failed to locate and identify over 160,000 near-Earth asteroids that pose a high risk to our planet's existence. A major asteroid collision can have a devastating impact on life on Earth, and NASA must be answerable for its failure to execute its responsibilities sincerely. Using whale oil and the Hubble Space Telescope. This one might shock everyone. Who knew whales had a use in NASA as well? As it turns out, it is in fact a necessity for the Hubble Space Telescope. Ever since its launch into orbit in 1990, the Hubble Space Telescope has been a source of constant wonder. Beaming back enthralling images of outer space and the galaxies to the Earth, this remarkable innovation has been pretty useful. While you might know how groundbreaking this invention is, have you ever wondered about the controversies that shroud the significance of this telescope? Well, one controversy had everyone by surprise. On 25th April 2010, the History Channel made a shocking revelation during its highly acclaimed miniseries, America, the Story of the U.S. The channel claimed that to this day, NASA has been using whale oil to operate the Hubble Space Telescope. This discovery sent waves of shock worldwide, making it the subject of political controversy as animal and environmental activists surrounded the organization with criticism and reproach. However, NASA responded quickly to the claims, maintaining that the organization simply does not require whale oil to operate any component of its iconic telescope. Despite the efforts to undermine these claims and reduce their status to an easily dismissible myth, experts continue to speculate about the utility of whale oil and its importance for Hubble's optimal functioning. For instance, research reveals that whale oil is a special lubricant that does not experience any changes in density at high pressures and extreme temperatures. More importantly, it does not freeze, even in sub-zero temperatures, and it does not have any natural substitute. With all that, it's very much possible that the claims were actually true. But you must be thinking, why is this a controversy? Well, in 1986, the International Whaling Commission made great efforts to protect whales and marine life, and all commercial whaling activities were banned. When these claims emerged in 2010, they immediately placed NASA in hot waters with accusations of the illegal procurement of whales and potential harm to marine life to support the organization's outer space discoveries. NASA is sexist. While many thought NASA loves equality, it turns out it secretly hates a certain group. With a long history of sexism and deliberate campaigns to exclude female astronauts and space scientists from opportunities to prove their mettle, NASA stands as more of a patriarchal organization. When examining NASA's history of sexism, it's important to combine it with the historical portrayal of American women as sex symbols. What if I told you that giving them the right to showcase their talent wasn't actually the reason for NASA to include women in the space programs? Let me explain. The story began on 16th June 1963, when Russia, who at the time was championing the space race, decided to dispatch Valentina Tereshkova to space. Tereshkova, the first woman to travel to space, was a symbol of hope and pride for women worldwide. But in the American space community, news of her achievement was marred with sexism and derogatory comments. Soon after the decision was announced, the American press launched a massive smear campaign, humiliating and denigrating Valentina's image. Some reports would even comment on her plump figure instead of her extraordinary feats, while others would waste ink on her use of lipstick rather than her intensive training. NASA's then flight director, Chris Kraft, who worked closely with Tereshkova at the Manned Spacecraft Center, labeled her an absolute basket case and accused her of being hysterical in space. All of this only showed how it was unacceptable for NASA to see a woman in space. But wherever they said, Valentina Tereshkova was a dynamic and gifted woman and a highly trained astronaut. NASA's refusal to accept that a woman could be trained as an astronaut led to smear Tereshkova's career with controversies. Back in the day, NASA and the American space science community simply did not believe women could amount to much in the field, unless they were vying for a secretarial position. Robert Voas, NASA's most noteworthy astronaut trainer, once joked that having women on a spacecraft would certainly reduce the overall weight, but only as long as the women left their purses behind. Some space scientists even wondered if the inclusion of women would help men satisfy their sexual needs and ward off loneliness on their long voyages into space. Naturally, back in the day, the idea of women entering space was only conceivable if they were seen as helpers or assistants for the male crew members. Renowned American space voyagers like Rhea Seddon, Shannon Lucid, Catherine Sullivan, and Anna L. Fisher had to fight off sexist executives, deep-rooted misogyny, and rampant discrimination to prove their mettle against their male counterparts. Even today, despite being recruited as astronauts and included in space programs, women astronauts are still fighting discrimination and sexism. They are forced to accommodate themselves to equipment and spacecraft designed exclusively for men. For instance, the design and equipment of the Apollo was simply not functional to provide accommodation and convenience to female astronauts. For once, it did not provide any mixed-gender accommodation and denied women the privacy they needed. The entire crew could not use the bathroom, and to make matters worse, the equipment designed for urine collection and disposal was not suited to the female anatomy. How on earth is a woman supposed to use that? But it seems all those smart scientists didn't really understand basic anatomy. Overwhelming depression and unhappiness is common. Those of us who find stories of space travel enrapturing often see astronauts as super beings who ride in high-tech rockets and embark on exciting adventures in space. Between their rip-roaring escapades across the galaxies and riveting footage of other planets, we forget that astronauts are, at the end of the day, just as human as we are. They have lives and families. They have emotional and physical needs, and the prolonged isolation makes them incredibly unhappy and highly vulnerable to depression. Reports suggest that astronauts struggle with isolation and depression, leading them toward impaired mental well-being and thoughts of self-harm. The NASA astronaut training program is notorious for being highly competitive, selective, and even discriminatory, which makes it all the more popular as a significant milestone for aspiring astronauts worldwide. Astronauts must possess the perfect physical traits and undergo years of extensive academic training, followed by professional training to make the cut. Even if they do make the cut, they must survive intense competition to climb aboard a spacecraft, where chances are even less than 1%. After going through all this trouble, imagine ending up in a gruelingly demanding job where you can't even stretch your limbs out at your leisure. Now that's the side of space travel that NASA does not want us to see. And this is all for today, folks. While NASA loves keeping its secrets, I am passionate about digging deep to unravel secrets, demystifying myths, and debunking false claims. What topic would you like for us to explore next? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you in the next one.